Defense of Ugledar, the last days. Soldiers of the 3rd Mechanized Battalion of the 72nd Brigade in a duel of armored vehicles caught the Russian BMP-2. The Black Cossacks fought and continue to fight in extremely difficult conditions, demonstrating real heroism. It should be remembered that the heroism of a soldier is often a consequence of mistakes and irresponsibility at the highest level. I want to comment on this video. What do you think this video can say? Write in the comments. Night work of the M2A2. Bradley of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade on enemy positions, Boza Sprava, God's Cause. Spidal consists of 6 steel bunkers. Each Russians are being captured on the territory of the Kursk region. .501 BMP captures 2 Russians in the Kursk region of Russia. Location: Apanasovka, Kursk region. Ukrainian and Russian tanks faced each other. There were only trees among them. The Ukrainian tank made the first move and blew up the Russian tank. A tank of the 3rd Armored Brigade fires from 2 kilometers away with high explosive fragmentation projectiles at enemy positions in Orlivka. There was an FPV drone attack on this Russian vehicle. However, it received minor damage. A second FPV drone attack was made on the vehicle that tried to escape by turning back, and the vehicle was neutralized. Here is a Russian missile system for you. How many drones do you think would be needed to blow this up? 1, 3, 5. Only 1 drone can blow up a huge tank. Here's the proof. Write your comments about the video. It's very interesting how a tank can become like this with just an FPV drone. Just as the tank was about to open fire, a drone attack suddenly occurred and he was surprised at what happened. The tank caught fire and crashed on its own. Another turtle tank, this time called Native, was destroyed in the direction of Urozhain. Attack using AASM-250 Hammer aerial bombs on positions with Russian soldiers in the Kharkiv region. HIMARS strikes on Russian BM-27 Uragan MLRS, BM-21 Grad MLRS, and Torn MDM, electronic warfare systems, on the left bank of the Kherson region, directed by the Shark UAV. SBUs work with FPV drones. Among the destroyed vehicles, there was a rare specimen. the Terminator. How long do you think Russian tanks can withstand Ukrainian FPV drones? Do you think Russian tanks are doomed? Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to like the video. Border guards found and destroyed enemy positions in the Zaporizhia direction. (110th Separate Mechanized Brigade, Pokrovsky direction. 2 T-72 tanks of the occupiers wanted to get into position, but we see everything and neutralize it. Russian vehicles, which set out in the early hours of the morning, entered the radar of FPV drones, and 3 Russian vehicles were completely neutralized in the early hours of the morning. Wounded soldiers are looking for a place to hide. These 2 poor Russian soldiers have no idea what will happen to them next. These 3 soldiers are very lucky, because if they had been 10 seconds late, maybe they wouldn't be alive right now. Destruction of the 9S-18M3 radar and the TZM transporter erector launcher of the BUKM-2 system. Our infantry reported that the Russians were accumulating in this building in order to then advance to storm our positions. 1 kamikaze drone with a landmine closed this issue. An airstrike by a JDAM guided bomb on the KSP and the communication point of the Russian army in the temporarily occupied village of Vasilivka in the Zaporizhzhia region. Heavy, unmanned aerial vehicle Vampire of border guards of the Kramatorsk detachment brought warmth to the occupiers in the Vovchan direction at night. During recent assault operations, the Russians used a lightly armored communication vehicle that also served as a repeater as it was thought, our scouts found, and FPV-Shniki destroyed the field communication point. "13 Russians hid in the building. Our kamikaze drone knocked them out of hiding and forced them to run to the basement. We sent another landmine, which made the Russian soldiers run away. They ran in different directions. Thus, all the invaders received at least 2 concussions and injuries." Has released footage of several enemy military equipment and personnel losses in the Zaporizhzhia direction. The video shows just a few days' worth of work, during which friendly artillery units destroyed artillery installations, MLRS, enemy troops, specialized vehicles, and electronic warfare equipment. Spectacular footage of the defeat of the Russian BTR-82A by a strike from the Javelin ATGM in the Donetsk region. On the Eastern Front, Ukrainian FPV drones repelled Russian mechanized attacks and blew up numerous vehicles and equipment. Dozens of tanks and vehicles are blown up every day as the Russian-Ukrainian war continues at its fiercest. Russia pays millions of dollars every day for these losses. The Ukrainian Navy reported the destruction of a Russian ammunition and fuel and lubricants depot on the Kinburn Spit in the Black Sea. In this short video, I want to show how Ukrainian soldiers spend their day, what they do, and how they carry out their operations. Could you join the war? Were medieval wars harder or modern wars harder? Write your thoughts in the comments. Fighters of the 46th Brigade demonstrate the repulsion of another assault between NP Pobjeda and Georgievka. Deep State. The assault consisted of 2 columns, with 5 and 3 units of equipment, which were met by the Ukrainian military with the help of ATGMs and FPV drones. The enemy are actively trying to attack Georgievka, but they have little success. Russian Olympians break long and high jump records. FPV drone pilots are working great as always. Would you like to be a FPV drone pilot, or have you ever used a drone in your life? It is difficult to use drones, but it is much more difficult to use FPV drones. It requires a lot of talent, attention, skill, and steady work. Especially if you are a military drone pilot, you can even change the course of the war. Pobeda Village, Pokrovsk direction. Rusians storm our positions with 27 units of equipment. The 33rd Mechanized Brigade successfully repelled the attack and destroyed 16 military vehicles and 60 Russians. Why do Russian tanks explode so easily? Are Ukrainian drones too strong or Russian tanks too weak? Write your thoughts in the comments. Is there any way to stop FPV drones? The security service of Ukraine dealt a powerful blow with a kamikaze drone to the Russian MTLB. Another tank destroyed by an FPV drone. The Shadow unit struck a Russian T-72B3 with a kamikaze drone from your side, after which it caught fire and exploded due to the ammunition detonation. Once again, a drone kamikaze from the M2 group strikes Russian armored vehicles with infantry on top. This tank may be the luckiest tank to date. He was attacked by FPV drones many times, but he escaped from all of them with very small chances. It took little damage. Can you imagine what fear the soldiers in the tank experienced? It is not enough for the occupiers to deliver ammunition to the positions, because even when they succeed, our soldiers destroy their warehouses. 128 OGS HBR works in the Zaporizhzhia direction. 44th Separate Artillery Brigade destroyed 2 enemy self-propelled artillery units, 257 Pion, multiple rocket launcher system BM, 21 Grad, and self-propelled artillery unit 2S-19 MST-S. Adjustments were made using UAV Shark. Fierce clashes between Ukrainian troops and North Korean troops continue. In the Kursk region, reconnaissance drones of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces counterattacked the North Korean soldiers they detected. According to news sources, 21 North Korean soldiers were killed and 40 were wounded. Reconnaissance drones gave coordinates to Ukrainian soldiers. This allowed the soldiers to fire directly at their targets. It was a hot battle, both from the air and on the ground. Destruction of a Russian tank and other wonderful Rusoras performed by soldiers 118 Obertro. Do you think FPV drones have changed the course of modern warfare? Write your thoughts in the comments. A Russian tank that opened fire on Ukrainian soldiers was attacked, and the tank was slightly damaged. Russian soldiers who got off the tank to go to the toilet were almost dead. How effective do you think these drones are? Destruction of Russian armored vehicles on the Avdiivka direction. Seeing his friend blown up, the other Russian tank backed away and the room was blown up. Russian tank convoy units are moving quickly to attack Ukrainian positions. It's very hot and close and the troops are engaging. Air and ground troops from both countries are engaged in intense fighting. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drone operators, working in concert with artillery units, are firing heavy artillery shells at Russian tanks. At the same time, Ukrainian FPV drones are attacking Russian tanks one after another. Russian soldiers whose tanks are damaged are hiding in bunkers and wooded areas. 10 enemy armored vehicles came under barrage fire from the soldiers of the 63rd and 60th Separate Mechanized Brigades. 5 tanks and 5 BMPs, sent on a suicidal assault on Ukrainian positions, were destroyed, damaged by artillery fire, and finished off by drones. Limansk direction of the front. Footage from a drone at the Sudja checkpoint in the Kursk region of Russia, showing the capture of Russian conscripts. Rusores are ready to fight. Russians are storming our positions every day. The company of the 79th Air Assault Brigade of the Perun Group, together with other comrades, is giving a worthy rebuff to the invaders. The paratroopers of the 79th repulsed the night assault on their positions. Russian occupiers resort to testing new tactics. However, the aerial reconnaissance of the Maroon Berets from Mykolaiv detected the approach of the enemy column in time, and the enemy was hit by fire. As a result, the enemy lost 4 pieces of equipment and retreated. The Russian mechanized assault on the Kurakiv direction was crushed. The 79th Air Assault Brigade destroyed 2 tanks and 6 armored vehicles with infantry, and another enemy tank was damaged. Stormtroopers of the 425th Separate Assault Battalion Skala carry out counter-offensive actions in the city of Toretsk, Donetsk region with the support of M113 armored personnel carriers and M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. HIMARS cluster munitions operation. The Russians tried to storm this section of the front for several days in a row. Thanks to the efforts of the headquarters of the 225th Separate Assault Battalion, an operation was developed that provided for creating conditions for inflicting fire damage and clearing this sector. The key point was the precise timing of each stage of the action. When the enemy, believing in his success, pulled significant forces into this square, they were targeted with cluster munitions from HIMARS. Ukrainian FPV drones hit the targets they detect with precision strikes. It is almost impossible to escape from FPV drones. Because drones do not get tired, they do not take a break. If you are confronted with a professional drone operator, you will be lucky to escape. How much have FPV drones affected the course of the war? Is there any way to stop FPV drones? What measures can soldiers take to avoid or neutralize drones? One long-range Lancet soldiers of the Central Security Service of Ukraine within the framework of the Heavenly Russo Riz program shot down a kamikaze drone Izdalie 51, which was flying to attack our people. Ukrainian kamikaze drones hit Russian Bak-M3 and Bak-M1 air defense systems in the eastern direction. Two Russian soldiers got inside the damaged BMP to hide from the FPV drone, but they did not know that it is impossible to escape from the FPV drone. And finally, it happened. This BMD-2 went to prevent the Cossacks from liberating the Kursk region. Boys in forgot to close the door and caught the drone in the face. Fighters from the Bulava Unmanned Systems Battalion of the 72nd Separate Mechanized Brigade, named after the Black Zaporozhians, successfully destroyed a ground-based Russian drone. The Russian troops planned their attack and set out to attack. But there was one thing they did not take into account or forgot. Ukrainian reconnaissance planes were following them step by step. The leading Russian motorized infantry got scared after a few bombings and turned and fled. When the decision was made to retreat, the Russian armored vehicle also turned to go back. That's when the armored vehicle was blown up by an artillery howitzer attack. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones reported the coordinates of the lone Russian tank to attack drones. The attack drone then quickly attacked the front of the tank and destroyed it with a single strike. The detonation of a Russian tank's ammunition supply as a result of an FPV drone strike in the Donetsk region. Defense forces in the south neutralized the Russian 9K317 Buk M3 air defense system. I'm sorry, but these two poor Russian soldiers are trying to escape from the FPV drone. It is almost impossible to escape from FPV drone. By the way, how did these soldiers not shoot each other? Very interesting. The Russian soldier made a very smart move and saved his own life at the last moment. Thanks to remote mining with drones, the enemy infantry fighting vehicle was stopped in its tracks, and the kamikaze put an end to this story. It's so great to see how drones are making it possible to disrupt the plans of the Russian invaders. It's a really exciting time for technology, and it's amazing to think that we can now minimize human losses on the battlefield. After the Russians successfully struck the planes once in the Dnipro region, they attempted it again. The Orlan with the latest arrived, filmed a pompous video of them hitting the Su-25 and started circulating it everywhere, but people online discovered it was a mock-up. Firstly, it's about the cockpit and its strange color and shape. Secondly, in the footage, you can see that the wings overlap the air intakes, although on a normal Su-25, the wing merges into the air intake. The Ukrainian robot rarely works in the Pokrovsky direction. There were more than 10 occupiers in the tunnel. M142. HIMARS destroys the Russian SuperCam UAV calculation. 47th. Separate Mechanized Brigade has shown the combat operation of M1 Abrams tanks in the Avdiivka direction. Rayrog Battalion of the 24th Separate Mechanized Brigade destroyed the Russian T-80 BVM tank with your thick drones. How resistant do you think Russian tanks are against FPV drones? How do you think tanks can develop a defense mechanism against drones? The tank turret toss world record is being disputed. We have kindly been informed of this competition entry from April 2023 by the 116th Brigade of the TRO. The judges are currently evaluating the various. The turret can be seen landing after a 8-second flight. Using S equals UT plus 1/2 AT squared, this could have reached a height of 78.5 meters, which would exceed the 76 meters of the previous entry. T-90 cooks off after taking a blast from a drone. Ukrainian flame drone destroys ammunition and first aid supplies hidden in the forest area by burning them. Do you think this drone is an effective weapon? The T-90M Russian tank could not get out of its hole and became an easy target for the drone. It was completely destroyed. The occupiers published a video of how they hit the Kharkov region with Grad directly from the road in the Belgorod region. Repelling a large assault with 46 units of equipment this morning in the Kharkiv direction. Incredible. The 46th Separate Air Assault Brigade destroyed 9 BMPs, 2 tanks, 2 APCs, and 2 motorcycles, and rendered 11 more BMPs inoperable. The remaining equipment fled the battlefield. First, the Ukrainians attacked the tanks, then they hunted down the soldiers who got off the tanks one by one. The Russian vehicle was carrying Russian soldiers. The drone, coming from behind, attacked the vehicle. The second attack took place but was not accurate. The soldiers ran away after the vehicle stopped. The Russian tank carrying recruits who had just started the war was attacked. Many soldiers were seriously injured before they could even fight. It was easy to blow up the Russian tank, which alone in the middle of the field made it an easy target. Do you think the crew of the tank is alive? (110th) Separate Mechanized Brigade, Pokrovsky direction. The full version of the epic shooting down of the Su-25 with the fall of the plane and the ejection of the pilot. The Russian UR-77 mine-clearing vehicle was destroyed by a drone-dropped grenade. The work of the 79th Brigade Javelin in the area of Selidovo liquidates the Russian tank T-72B3M. How resistant do you think Russian tanks are to incoming attacks? Is it normal for them to explode with every missile or drone attack? Write in the comments. A group of Russian soldiers are in a damaged building. These soldiers are firing heavy machine guns at a Ukrainian tank. The tank opened fire targeting Russian troops in the building. A drone attack on the building followed. The Ukrainian tank fired consecutive cannon shots at the Russian troops in the building. M142. HIMARS destroys a Russian Buk M3 SAM launcher in the Kursk region. Before the strike, the system's operators made an unsuccessful attempt to shoot down a Ukrainian Armed Forces reconnaissance UAV. FPV drones have destroyed the Russian tank T-90M Breakthrough. The crew of the Samosud unit of the UAV Shark 11, brigade of the NGU on the left bank of Kherson region engaged the tank when it was trying to attack our soldiers. The soldiers of the 406th Artillery Brigade detected the vehicle using the Shark complex. Last week, SBU soldiers were destroyed. 10 tanks, 33 BBM, 18 artillery systems, 4 air defense systems, and an EW, 219 vehicles, 25 UAVs, and 22 antennas, 148 fortifications, 2 warehouses with ammunition, 176 Russian soldiers. The 72nd Mechanized Brigade of AFU showed footage by its strike UAV operators working near Vuhledar. If you like our videos and the sound effects we add to them, please don't forget to like the video and leave a comment. HIMARS strike on the 9T452 loading machine for the BM-27 Hurricane. Footage of FPV drone attack on transport vehicle in Kharkiv region. Destroyed with a single hit after precise calculation. HIMARS is striking with cluster munitions at a large concentration of Russians in Kursk region. These enemy units were gathering to prepare for assault actions on Ukrainian positions. A Russian vehicle carrying Russian infantrymen is unexpectedly attacked by a first FPV drone, but survives. After some distance, some of the infantry jump out of the vehicle to hide. Continuing on the road, the Russian vehicle was destroyed after being attacked by the second and third FPV drone, and the crew lost their lives. Another rare Russian reconnaissance UAV Merlin was shot down. Airstrikes on Russian positions on the eastern outskirts of Veseloye, Kursk region of Russia. If a person has never flown a FPV drone, especially one equipped with ammunition, they will never understand how challenging it is. That's why such videos are really cool. Ukrainian tankers from the 59th Motorized Brigade shooting directly at Russian positions near Sukharine. During the battle, the BMP-3 crew of the Russian army mistakenly shot their own BMP-2 at close range in the village of Ruska Konopelka, Kursk Oblast, Russia. An airstrike by Ukrainian Air Force with GBU-39 bombs on a platoon base in the Kursk region. The command post of the Air Force Base, EW unit, equipment, weapons, and up to 40 servicemen of the Russian Federation were hit. Another Russian T-80 tank burned by the FPV drone operated by the Garuda 46 Brigade unit. Successful removal of a mine barrier by the crew of a Russian tank. This is the third time I've seen the Russians perform this anti-mine maneuver in the last week. Another sortie of the Russian armored group in Avdiivka. Mines, ATGMs, FPV drones, at least 2 Russian BMPs and 2 tanks were lost. Only in this one video there are 8 military vehicles. One fell, it happens, not a big deal, we can laugh, but in Avdiivka it's not funny right now. A video of the successful destruction of the command post of a motorized rifle regiment in the Belgorod region has surfaced. Judging by the available footage, the control point was completely destroyed. No, it's not nuclear. They're just Special Operations Center warriors. SBU showed Russians. In the Pokrovsky direction, the invaders went to the fire station. Position on the BM 21 degrees, and they were immediately hit by an FPV drone. There was nothing left of the crew and the MLRS itself. The Russian convoy was spotted by Ukrainian FPV drones and immediately attacked. Russian tanks were blown up one by one. Some lucky soldiers managed to escape at the last moment. They prayed to God at breakfast. While the Russian tank was preparing to attack, it was attacked by an FPV drone. The soldiers who got off the tank were hunted down one by one. They came to rescue the wounded soldiers. They almost flew into the air, too. For this moped rider in the Kursk region, this trip was the last. Your drone was effectively used by soldiers of the 3rd DSHB of the 80th Galician Brigade. The German Iris-T air defense complex destroyed by Russia near the border of the Kursk region was a dummy build. The Russians published the strike of the Iskander-M missile complex on the Iris-T near the village of Sina in the Sumy region of Ukraine, 11 kilometers from the border with the Kursk region. Build expert on open data analysis, Julian Ropka, considers the air defense complex very similar to a dummy. Ukrainian soldiers from the 77th Separate Aircraft Brigade destroyed Russian armored vehicles. Another headache for the Zs. Bradley takes on a Russian T-80 tank. Fighters of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade destroyed enemy equipment using a Tau anti-tank missile. Credit to the Discovery crew of the 2nd Mechanized Battalion, 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade. How many FPV drone attacks must occur for a tank to blow up? I just don't understand this. The anti-tank missile platoon of the 66th Separate Motorized Brigade destroyed 25 Russian tanks in 4 days in the Lyman direction. Among them, there's T-90 tank. Russian troops trying to advance in the Kursk region were caught by Ukrainian FPV drone operators. Ukrainian attack drone operators went to the coordinates given by reconnaissance drones and attacked Russian armored vehicles. A Russian tank burned down after several FPV drone attacks. The Russian crew, whose vehicles were destroyed, tried to hide in bunkers, shelters, and ruined houses. However, Ukrainian drones continued to attack one after another. An attempt by the Russians to break through from Mariinka was stopped by FPV drones of the 33rd OMBR destroyed. 2 IFV, 2 tanks and infantry. Do you think medieval wars were more brutal, or modern wars are more brutal and horrible? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Ukrainian forces, using FPV drones and artillery, are repelling a massive Russian assault near the village of Plekova in the Kursk region. Almost all vehicles and crew of the Russian convoy are destroyed. These expensive Russian vehicles were destroyed by seemingly simple but very effective FPV drones. Of course, Ukraine does not only carry out drone attacks, but FPV drones are a low-cost, very fast, and very effective weapon. It is almost impossible for soldiers to escape by running or hiding. The liquidation of Russian BMP and an armored personnel carrier on the Zaporizhzhia front. What do you think about the place of FPV drones in modern warfare? Ukrainian soldiers in a Humvee survived an intense artillery shelling and failed attack by a Russian kamikaze drone. One can imagine what the soldiers inside the vehicle were feeling. The Gyatsint S Russian self-propelled artillery unit was destroyed near Petrovka in the Zaporizhzhia region. Most expensive target in the history of FPV application has been destroyed. Warriors of the Wings to Hell unit of the 103rd Territorial Defense Brigade in the Kupyansky direction set fire to and destroyed a Russian Tor anti-aircraft missile system using several of your drones. The cost of this is from $24 million and more. That's over 900 million hryvnias. This is at least 4 times or more than we have collected for almost 14,000 FPVs in total. A Russian tank moving through the trees could not escape the Ukrainian FPV drone operator. The drone, moving through the trees with agile maneuvers, hit the tank with a direct hit. Then the second drone attack took place, and the tank was destroyed by fire. That's how the Russians raked out the soldiers of the 57th Motorized Infantry Brigade and your drones in Volchansk. Strikes on armored vehicles, including hidden ones, and also with meat dynamic protection. Four Russian tanks and vehicles worth millions of dollars were destroyed with only a few $100s worth of FPV drones. FPV drones have become almost the most powerful, fastest, and most effective weapons in modern land warfare. Fast, powerful, and almost unstoppable. What do you think? The 72nd Separate Mechanized Brigade hit a vehicle standing alone on the road with an FPV drone, and it was destroyed by fire. A group of Russian soldiers are in the back of the truck. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone monitors the situation and reports it to the attack drone. Then, without wasting any time, the attack drone quickly attacks the vehicle and destroys it by burning it. The explosion of the Russian armored vehicle occurred from the first blow of the FPV throne of Ukrainian Marines. This is another proof of interesting solutions to Russian designers who installed a tank-caliber gun with an appropriate amount of ammunition for easily armored equipment. The Ivan 2M armored car failed to protect Russian soldiers. How safe do you think it is to travel on a tank like this? What's the alternative? The Ministry of Defense published a video of a direct artillery hit on a tank. Probably the entire crew lost their lives. Counter-battery radar system Zoopark of the Russian Armed Forces has been destroyed. HIMARS strikes have taken out the operators of the Zala UAV and the Lancet kamikaze drones in the Donetsk region. It is declared as the destruction of another Russian TOS-1 Solntsepek in the Zaporozhye direction. Ukrainian FPV drones continue to attack Russian vehicles unabated. Who do you think will be the winner of this war? More importantly, when do you think this war will end? One armored personnel carrier and one infantry fighting vehicle were destroyed. Another infantry fighting vehicle was hit. A Chinese golf car and tank were burned and infantry was packed. Russian tanks and Russian vehicles, which became easy in open terrain, were destroyed one by Ukrainian FPV drone pilots. Subscribe and like the video for this and similar videos. I'm happy to say that this AGS-17 grenade launcher is now safe for our infantry. Destruction of a column of Russian armed forces on the Kupiansk direction. 6 BMPs with infantry hit. M142. HIMARS hits Russian 39H6, Kosta 2E2 radar station in Donetsk region. Unfortunately, the soldiers, who thought they were escaping from the drones by hiding among the trees, still could not escape the attack. The 79th Airborne Assault Brigade detected and destroyed the Russian Tor air defense system in Olenivka, near Donetsk. These loaves have EW systems within them. However, as the video demonstrates, Ukrainian Fpv drones still successfully target many of these vehicles, since Ukraine can convert to non-standard frequencies and accurately hit targets. The video is reportedly the fifth burnt loaf of bread that Ukraine successfully targeted in the area. A more detailed video showing the destruction of the Russian remote mining complex Zembedeli near the same river in Kursk. I understand better and better every day how effective weapons FPV drones are. I think they are the most powerful, fastest, and cheapest combat tool of modern warfare in land warfare. What do you think? Write your thoughts in the comments. Vehicles exploded, safe havens exploded, soldiers taking a break are attacked, a vehicle hiding in a bush is blown up, road mines were detonated, mission accomplished. In the Seversky direction, Ukrainian drone operators repelled a large group of Russian motorcyclists. The drone attack started on the group of motorcyclists gathered together. Then the group dispersed, and one by one they were targeted by drones. Soldiers hiding in shelters and among trees failed to escape the drones. The entire group was neutralized. This morning, the Russians tried to break through the positions of the 15th Karadag Brigade south of Selidovo. All the equipment was destroyed. The infantry was eliminated. There is replenishment of the exchange fund. If any of the Russian tanks and any of the Ukrainian tanks face to face, which tank would win? To support our channel, you can click the join button or send a super donation. The Russians ran into the surviving part of the building. They thought they would hide there from our pilots. One kamikaze drone with a high explosive charge won a game of hide and seek. Bradley Infantry Fighting Vehicle, a nightmare for occupiers. The Bradley Infantry Fighting Vehicle continues to be a formidable force against Russian occupiers. The Ukrainian BMP M2A2 Bradley ODSSA fired at the retreating Russian BMP in the Donetsk region. Russian tank BMP-3 blew up in a big way. Do you think the crew is alive? The crew of the BMP M2A2, Bradley of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade, effectively destroys the Russian infantry in the Pokrovsk direction. In the Pokrovsky direction, soldiers of the 68th Separate Jaeger Brigade destroy a Russian armored personnel carrier with the help of your drones. Russian soldiers whose tanks caught fire planned to hide in a bunker to escape the drones. But the drones were following them step by step. After they entered the bunker, the drones exploded. Other drones attacked Russian vehicles trying to rescue Russian soldiers from the area. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, angry beavers destroyed a Russian MTLB with a barbecue on your fat drone. These night flashes were created with the help of Russian BM-21 Grad, a tank and an infantry fighting vehicle, which were blown up by fighters of the 68th Separate Hunter Brigade. In the Kursk region, Ukrainian drones are burning Russian ammunition, supplies, and various military equipment in forested areas. This fire-breathing drone is used to destroy anything hidden in the woods. What do you think about the direction drones are taking the war in general? Nine Russian drone operators were killed by a drone strike in Okaratyne-Pokrovsk sector. Do you think the Russian soldiers made it out of that building alive? BMP Bradley is already a legend in the armed forces of Ukraine, and the crews of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade are brave soldiers who prove every day that there is no such foreign equipment.